Okay, cool. Well, thanks, Gautam, for joining me today. To kick us off, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, great to meet everyone. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Gautam. I am one of the co-founders and the CEO of a fintech startup called Glide. Glide's mission is to help modernize legacy financial institutions. Right, so we've seen over the past decade the rise of these neobanks who've been able to provide exceptional technology and some incredible marketing and growth strategies to specifically the younger audiences. And while it's been really great for consumers, legacy financial institutions, namely community banks and credit unions, have kind of been left in the dust. And so Glide is helping empower these financial institutions with better onboarding software, better loan origination software, and better mobile banking tools so that they can start to be competitive to this rise of neobanks that we're seeing.
Awesome summary. And when you were getting this company off the ground, I think you participated in PearX in 2021. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So I met my founding team when I was one in middle school, the first co-founder, and the second one in college at the University of Illinois. All three of us come from a pretty technical engineering background, and we were actually working on a different idea at the time. We were using a lot of our learnings from some of the internships and co-ops that we did at companies like Google and Stripe, and we're working on a consumer idea. We wanted to build a better way to allow Gen Z and millennials to get access to banking technologies in a way that was fun and gamified and social, kind of like what we're seeing this generation looking for. And we realized we needed a accelerator program or some kind of investor partner that knew this journey really well to help us expedite a lot of the learnings. And as a result, we came across PearX and applied for the accelerator.
Nice. And were you considering other accelerators at the time, or I guess like talk more about like what stood out about the PearX program for you?
Yeah, I think for us, we're all first-time founders. So I think we're all very kind of aware of what stage of founders we are. We didn't really know much about the startup ecosystem. We're builders, we're scrappy. Me and my co-founder have been doing this together for a decade now. And we had some big company experience, but I think we knew we needed something that was really hands-on, right? And so we went through the process of some of the other bigger accelerator programs. But what really stood out about Pear is the cohort size, right? For us, I believe it was either 15 or 16 startups that made up the entire cohort. And each one of us got a partner that worked directly with us on everything from the ideation phase all the way to actually getting an MVP up and off the ground. So, I think it really depends on what kind of stage you are as a company. But for someone like us who needed like a lot of hands-on support and wanted those lessons and wanted to hear from really experienced partners and founders, I think Pear made the most sense. So we ended up doing that accelerator program in summer 2021.
Awesome. And can you give an overview of PearX's admission process? I saw they have like a written application on the website. We'll love to hear more about like either the following interviews or what happens after that.
Yeah, great question. So the process starts with the application, right? And so currently applications are live, so they're filling up the final few spots of their PearX winter cohort, which starts in February. So if you are a startup founder or looking to become a startup founder, check that out. It'll start with that, and then afterwards you'll have a couple interviews that follow. So one will usually be a 15 to 30-minute intro call, just so one of the partners on the team can get a really good idea of who you are as a company, who you are as a founder and a team. And then you'll probably move to a much kind of deeper round where you'll sit with a couple partners on the call and they'll kind of go through your business model. The format is pretty standard. You'll be asked to kind of pitch your product, answer questions from the partner, bring some questions about Pear, and have a great discussion with the team.
Nice. What were some of the questions they asked you during that interview process, if you remember?
Yeah, I think what's important to note, and my advice for founders is at this stage, the team is the most important thing, right? And so you might be coming in as a pre-seed company, maybe in between a pre-seed or seed stage company. You might have a little bit of traction or a lot of traction, but at the end of the day, you're in the earliest innings. And what's going to make your company successful is your team, right? So a lot of the questions that we were getting are around, why do you think you would be the best team to build this product? And I think it's really important. It's a really important question to ask because that is your moat. That is your only moat today, right? It's you as a team and you as a founding team. And so a lot of think really deeply about where that founder market fit story is, how you think your team is going to separate itself from the inevitable slew of competitors that are going to be coming after the same space as you guys. And so that's one category of questions. And then the other one is kind of just thinking about like, where's the big vision, right? So a lot of times, companies will have a really compelling wedge or a really compelling hook. They'll start to see some early traction or early customer success stories, but they won't necessarily have a great idea of how this can translate into something venture scalable, right? Into a big company. And so, of course, it's not needed to have like a multi-year roadmap built out right at this moment, but at least
Yeah.
having an idea of how you think your initial wedge can translate into something a lot bigger is makes for a really interesting narrative.
Cool. And then I was kind of curious because I was talking with a founder who went through the Sequoia ARC program last week, and he was telling me there were sort of like two ways to apply to the program. He said you could like either apply directly through like the accelerator program, or you could just like try to raise money from Sequoia. And if you got like a pre-seed or seed term sheet, then they'd also extend an invitation to the program. Do you know if that's the case? It sounds like you applied directly to PearX, but do you know if like for companies that are trying to raise money from Pear VC or just do a traditional like VC investment, if like you can get into the program that way as well?
Yeah, good question. So usually the pair partners, if they are doing a pre-seed deal, they'll usually kind of expedite you through the process for the accelerator as well. What I recommend is if you're choosing between just going like trying to raise a round versus doing the accelerator program, I would say put your attention towards applying to the accelerator program, because that will kind of show the pair team that you are looking for more than just a check, right? You're looking for a partner to build this with from the beginning stages.
Cool. Yeah, I love that advice. And then I was looking on their website, and it looks like they structure their program in 4 phases: idea development, execution, demo day prep, and demo day. Can you describe in more detail, I guess, just like what happens during the 14-week program and sort of how they structure their curriculum?
Yeah, good question. And maybe I can even loop in some of our own personal experience here at
Yeah.
Glide. You might have noticed that I said we got in with a consumer idea that we had. And when I just gave my pitch at the beginning, we're talking about a B2B fintech idea, right? So you might be wondering like, hey, what happened along the way there? And so, yeah, those four steps are accurate. The structure is a 14-week long program. You'll meet with a dedicated partner weekly. Oftentimes, almost every single time, actually, there will be multiple partners on that weekly meeting or weekly call as well. Everyone is super accessible on the team, right? So in the very beginning, they'll figure out kind of what industry you're in, what are your strengths and weaknesses as a founding team. And because there are only 15 or 16 teams in our cohort, they're able to do this very in-depth with every single kind of company, right? And so we got the partners assigned to us that were able to help us with fintech, that were able to help us with consumer growth, but also kind of filled in some of the weak holes in our team that we needed some experts for. In addition to that, you also get access to a mentor, right? So this mentor is someone that's not directly, employed or affiliated with the firm, but someone who is an industry expert that the pair team has connections with. And so our mentor ended up being one of the vice presidents of product at Square. And so really important for us because we were leveraging a lot of Square-like infrastructure on the back end. And so it really helped make that connection. In addition to that, you'll also have group meetings with other founders. So one of our favorite parts of the accelerator was you'll have that once a week meeting with the partners. It'll just be you and the partners. You'll also have a meeting with a cohort of other founders. So they'll even actually split up that group of 15 into smaller subgroups. And we had a group of 3 or 4 people that were also working in the consumer or fintech spaces. And we'd sit down with them and we'd share all of our learnings for the past week. We basically measure our progress against each other. And it's a really good way to see if you're on track with hitting these demo day goals. And then one thing I want to talk about in particular is what that idea generation process looks like. So this is kind of connecting it back to us, right? So we entered in with this consumer idea. Throughout the program, we ended up kind of leveraging a lot of the pair insights in order to refine that idea and get it to a point that we thought it was demo day presentable. Throughout that process, we had access to Pair's resources to actually ideate and generate concepts. So Pair has these things like idea banks. They have idea generation boot camps. They put you in front of customers that by connecting you with them, they give you these different thesis testing frameworks. And it's really built for pivoting, right? So I think a thing that happens that a lot of companies go through is they'll come into an accelerator program, they'll have an idea, but pretty soon they'll realize they either have to refine or pivot that idea. And oftentimes investors might not give them the support that they need, right? They might actually shift their attention to the winners of the accelerator program, or the ones that don't need as much support because they think they have a greater chance of succeeding. Pear actually does the opposite. They recognize the companies that need some help, that need to actually refine these ideas, and they help you kind of set up those thesis testing frameworks and talk to all the necessary customers, and yeah, make it a really kind of actually seamless and oftentimes enjoyable process to pivot.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Can you maybe talk more about like the idea banks and the idea bootcamp? I think is the other thing that you mentioned. I guess just like, what is that? Is that like partners adding ideas to a spreadsheet, or how's that structured?
Yeah, good question. So, one of the benefits of being a company like Pear is you get to see a lot of startups come in through the pipeline just as their general like deal flow for investing, right? And so they have now been able to just collate kind of like a wish list of ideas that they wish existed, and it's customized per vertical as well. And so if a fintech founder comes in with an amazing fintech background, but ends up finding out that the idea doesn't have as much legs as they thought it would during the initial pitch, they can actually reference kind of customized lists of ideas that the partners wish they saw in startups that were pitching to them, almost like a request for product, but specifically for PearX, for PearX companies. And then I think the other thing that happens that's really important is these Pear partners are very direct with you, right? When they feel like it's time to switch ideas and or refine the idea. In the first 2 weeks, we had conversations with the partners where they were asking us questions about the longevity of this idea, and we as founders went back to the drawing board, kind of figured out answers to those questions, and on our own realized very, very early on that this was not a tenable idea, right? And so we were able to start that ideation bootcamp right from the beginning. And that's usually a couple-week process where you're testing a bunch of different ideas, sharing those learnings with the partners, and trying to get to a point where you can start refining and getting to demo day.
Yeah. And I guess like, were you the rare case, or were many other teams also participating in that bootcamp and potentially like switching ideas?
Good question. So I would say we're one of the few that went all the way back to the beginning, right? And like started from square one, and actually was like throwing all kinds of things at the wall, right? Talking about lending APIs, payment APIs, disputes, chargebacks, and then this consumer idea that we ended up really leaning into. Almost every company has some amount of pivoting to do, right? It's mostly a spectrum. So most companies, I will say, will probably end up in the same industry and probably along the same kind of product vision. But the actual like framing of the product, the narrative, the roadmap, all that stuff will change.
Yeah, makes sense. You mentioned a number of things that seem very valuable, whether it's like the access to the partners, like your peers. Sounded like you had a great mentor, this idea stuff. I guess like, what was the most valuable aspect of the program for you?
Yeah, I think one is everything that I said, right? First time founders coming in, we didn't have a lot of industry experience. And so understanding what makes an idea stick is something that's a really big lesson we learned, right? And all these resources really help with that. The other big one is post-demo day. So I, single-handedly owe all of our seed round success to Pear. I did not send a single outbound email. I did not make a single cold call. I did not send a single outbound Twitter DM to any investor. Every single investor that was connected was directly through Pear partners, going out, figuring out which funds would be the best fit for our seed round, and making intros directly to my email. And I think that's when I tell founders that that kind of blows them away, right? Because in every fundraise, there's always a component of like, I want a cold email to get access to these top tier VC funds, right? There was none of that. Every single fund that you could think of, Pear had multiple connections to. And they first made all those connections together to me directly, and ensure that every single, the requests were pretty far-fetched on our end too. Like, we were a consumer app, and so we wanted to talk to celebrities, right? And so Pear was able to connect us to Odell Beckham Jr., a football player, Steph Curry's VC fund, Jason Derulo's VC fund. And so as whatever kind of you need in the venture world, they're able to help with. And then after that, they also are on regular calls with you. So the support doesn't stop after demo day. I had a call almost every day with our partner who we were assigned to at the time, where I just went through all the calls per day that I was doing while I was raising the seed round. I went through the notes of each one. I figured out kind of where people were leaning to, where people were leaning out, got his feedback. And then I also part of that was him going and back channeling with all those people that he introduced us to. So Pear really like bends over backwards, fights tooth and nail in order to make sure you get your seed round done. And as a result of that, 85% of companies that leave Pear end up raising a successful seed round.
Yeah, I saw that stat on their website. It's really impressive. And that seed round happened after you pitched at demo day, or when did that happen?
Yeah, so after we pitched at demo day, which around 2,000 investors attend demo day every year, we ended up doing around 250 pitches that were, again, all introed to us. So 250 pitches to investors. We ended up raising or getting offers for around 3 times the amount that we actually were willing to take. And so we bumped up our amount that we were willing to take by a little bit, bumped up the valuation a little, but at the end of the day, just had this huge surplus of investors that we had to say no to. And it's a really great feeling, right? Because we were coming into demo day with we were coming into the accelerator without even an idea, and to leave it having 3x offers compared to the amount we needed was pretty incredible. And it's really because of Pear.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about, I guess, just like what actually happens on demo day? Is it just like a pretty standard demo day where you pitch in front of all these investors and then maybe there's some sort of networking afterwards, or how do they structure that event?
Yeah, so Pear has actually built a couple of really important internal tools to make that process better. So Pear has built the Demo Day app as well as their internal kind of investor relations dashboard. And so during Demo Day, investors can go onto the Demo Day app, they can see the list of 15 companies, and they can request to be connected to them. So they'll have that pulled up on their phone while the presenter is presenting. And the pitch itself is, pretty standard, 5 to 10 minute pitch about the company. The investors will go on their app and they'll just have to hit connect to any company they want to be connected to. It'll auto-generate an email, connect those two together. It'll actually even pull in some information about them that you use when signing up for the app. So it's a super seamless way to do it. And then after, there's an internal investor tracker. So Pear and you both have full visibility into everyone you're talking to, everyone you're waiting on Pear for an intro, every action item that you need to complete. And so it's built to get those, like, maybe not as much anymore, but built to get those like 2-3 week seed rounds that we used to see, and hopefully we'll continue to see from Pear companies.
Nice. And then I saw on their website, so they invest typically between $250K and $2 million into companies that are accepted in the program. Do they have like standard terms that they run out with companies that are accepted, or can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. They are standardized terms. The way it kind of worked for us is we had a base amount that was part of the program, and then there was an additional check that we could take in addition to that, just in case we felt like we needed more capital. It was at a more favorable valuation as well, so the dilution was very little. So most companies end up taking the base check plus the add-on. Don't quote me on what the numbers are now, because I don't know. Things have been raising quite a bit, right? But there generally is a pretty standardized package, and then ways that you can add on to it to get more capital from them.
Cool. And then, so you can't share the numbers, basically, is what you're saying.
I don't know the most up-to-date numbers.
Okay, so they've changed basically since you went through the program, is what you're saying?
They have changed it.
Okay.
I think it's probably at least doubled since we went through the program, but I think most of that information can probably be found on the PearX site as well. Okay.
And then last 2 questions are mostly like advice related. First is like, what advice would you give to someone applying to PearX?
Yeah, good question. I think one, for any accelerator program, it's always great to get referrals, right? And so getting more people bought into your idea is great. So search your networks and even, reach out to people that were in the program, like myself, and say, hey, I'm working on this idea. Do you mind putting in a referral? I think that's always a great way to get your foot in the door. The second one is like really, kind of understand the importance of team, right? I think I mentioned this before, but at this stage, like they're really, really looking for great founders, right? I think Pear knew coming in that our idea had a lot of holes in it, right? But they didn't necessarily let that stop them from making a bet on who they thought were great founders. And so that's that. Yeah, I think that's in general, like what I would say.
Well, did you apply through referral? And I guess like, who was that referral from? Did you just reach out to someone in the program? Did you know a founder that worked with them to the VC route, or
Yeah, so we ended up just applying cold. We ended up knowing a founder that was a couple connections away. Ended up talking to a partner at Pear that was connected to us through a couple people. But yeah, we really kind of sat down and scoured our networks in order to find those connections. And I have to understand from Pear's perspective, the acceptance rate of this program is extremely small, right? They're getting 1,000+ applicants of startups, and they can only take 15 by design, right? And so anything you can do to kind of stand out by talking to others that are already within the Pear network, I think is a great way to set yourself up.
Cool. And then second advice related question is, I guess, like, what advice would you give to a founder who got accepted into PearX to just make the most out of the program?
Yeah, I think taking advantage of the small size of the cohort is the biggest thing that I'd say. And this is unique to Pear, right? Every single partner is available to you. And while you will be paired up with partners that are most relevant to your direct needs, there's tons of value in talking to everyone at the team, right? And so reaching out, kind of understanding all the other partners' backgrounds and coming to them with kind of specific questions is really important, part one. And then two is taking advantage of all the resources within the program, right? A lot of times, I think I hear some accelerator programs say something along the lines of, this partner is available to you, but there aren't really like set processes or products that they've built that allow you to get help in certain areas. Pear has actually built a lot of those things out themselves. So I mentioned the demo day app. I mentioned the investor relation tool. Recently, they actually brought in a recruiter specifically for PearX companies. And so his name is Nate, and Nate's job is to help source candidates for PearX companies within the accelerator. And so last batch, they actually placed 20 offers. They actually gave out 20 offers during the course of this 14-week program. And so that means like if you 15, 16 companies, 20 offers, that's almost every single company on average placed at least a role within the company. And these are specific like pre-seed roles, right? These are like first engineer, first designer, COO, CTO, technical co-founder. And so to have those resources, I think is, and the list keeps growing. So I'd say like the advice here is like figure out like not only what's available to you today, but also what's coming in the future, and like be kind of an early beta tester for all of those as well. And yeah, they'll have plenty of resources available to you.
Nice. I really like that advice. We're out of time, but really appreciate you joining me today. Yeah, thanks, Gautam.
Awesome. Thanks so much.